All right, welcome back to the Ignite the King podcast. We have an awesome guest and special conversation happening today. I want to welcome Alex Kremer of Alluviance. Welcome, brother. So good to see you, even though I saw you all weekend.
It's good to be here, brother. Appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, this has been a long time coming. You listeners, viewers, wherever you're listening is from, are in for a real treat. If you have been on the personal growth journey for a long time, if you've been in corporate sales, if you're an entrepreneur, if you're a man that's like, show me an example of a man that's doing the work, this is the man right here. I've known Alex for probably 7 or 8 years at this point now. I've had the pleasure of taking care of you both with spinal care, with personal growth, within Ignite, personally VIP, lots of different ways. And what really sticks out to me about you that I really want to highlight today is when you say you're going to do something, you fucking do it. And when you're going to dive into something, you dive all the way in. And that was very evident this last weekend at our Warrior immersion. And just seeing like you knew what you were there for. You were willing to go farther and farther and farther. And I think I know because I've seen it. I've done this in your life over and over and over again. And it's just, I think, such a valuable conversation to have. So, man, it's almost like my experience of it is like when you see someone doing something, like they swing the pendulum so far, it's so that the culture can move an inch. And I think you do that both in your personal life. I think you're doing that in your professional life where you go all in, brother. You're, as we said at the week, a full send. You're full send on everything.
Well, it's one
And
of the rules of engagement you always set for your container. It's to play full out. So I'm just doing what you're telling me to do, Michael.
good job. Well, that's we got to play full out, man. We got one life to live. We never know when it's going to end, and we don't want to wonder, could I have given more? And you're definitely a beautiful example of that. So I'm excited to have this conversation today. Maybe so the viewers and listeners can get a little more idea of who you are, maybe just a little bit of your personal story, kind of where you came up from in corporate, and then that transition you made into starting your own company, Alluviance, that's helping others to kind of really tap into that inner game and break free of just those confines of the mind within a corporate world.
Yeah. So background on me, born and raised in San Diego. Now I live in the beautiful city of Austin, Texas, which I think the main reason why I came to Austin, I don't know, I think you do know this, but it's because you were throwing so many immersion in Austin. And so I was like, I'm down to all these, so I might as well just be in the city. But I've been here now for a little more than 2 years and I absolutely love it. I was in tech sales/sales leadership for like 15 years or so. So worked at companies like Microsoft, DocuSign, Outreach, grew out companies quite a bit, moved into sales leadership, led over, probably 200 or so sales professionals, started teams, opened up our New York office. And really a lot of my life was a lot about achievement, right? How do I crush numbers? How do I make a ton of money? How do I get promoted? All of that. And that was good up to a point. And what I really found is that it felt like every single time I hit that goal, I was happy for approximately 5 minutes. And then I was like, cool, what's the next goal that I'm chasing? And it was just this achievement paradox, I would say. And through that, I always dealt with stress, anxiety, depression is a big part of my work. And so it really hit this point where I was like, all right, like I'm trying to fill this void with external achievement and I'm needing something to really fill that thing inside. And I didn't know what it was. And my personal growth journey really started around 2016 timeframe, I think, is when I attended my very first immersion or joined my very first community. And let's just say I was hooked ever since then. And I've really dove in deep of going to at least, a quarterly retreat some way or the other. I've studied under incredible coaches, teachers, mentors. Of course, you are one of those people. I've really dove into meditation and breath work, attended silent meditation retreats. I've tried plant medicine. It's kind of like, hey, if this is going to help me peel back the layers and go inside, where do I sign? Like, let's go. And it's all in the name of being in service to something greater than myself. As I just went on that journey, I really started to find still that joy in, hey, I love learning how to sell and how to influence and how to lead, like almost kind of the left brain side. Like I didn't just stop wanting to essentially build and create, but I also wanted to do so with this deep level of purpose and fulfillment and joy within me. And really, my constant question was like, how do you combine those two things? Even another kind of form of the question was, how do I both do and be at the same time? It's kind of sometimes they feel at odds. And, the lexicon I learned from Ignite the King was, how do you find the sacred third between those two? And as life would have it, I remember claiming, hey, I think I want to do this thing and start my own community and start throwing retreats. And then I got fired from my job. And it was kind of one of those things. I'd been at this company for just under 5 years, and they decided to make a strategic change, and they closed our New York office. And my boss's boss, all of us got laid off. And I was like, all right, like, what am I meant to do here? And I said, F it, let's go all in. And I remember actually shooting a video into our Ignite the King WhatsApp bonfire group. I'd be like, hey guys, I think I'm called to do this thing. And I threw my first immersion, and I was like, man, I absolutely love this. And so that was the start of what's called Alluviance, my company, which is not just a company, it's really a movement, is how I like to describe it, which is a lot around how do you move people from being in this conventional world, which is a lot about status, money, achievement, control, force, to more this conscious and essence led world where it's like, sure, we want those things, but it's also about what's your highest purpose. How do you trust and how do you surrender? And how do you really start to work on your inner game and meet these different parts of yourself to essentially find out who you're really meant to be? And so we've been doing that for about 3 years now, and loving every single step of the way. I've been growing a ton, and I've been learning a lot from Ignite along the way as well.
Beautiful, man. Beautiful. Yeah, I remember when that idea became, I'm going to do this, such a poignant moment in the journey of growth and entrepreneurship. And as you shared in your story, it's always like that pattern interrupt of, yeah, I had this idea, and the next thing you know, I got fired. It's how are those things related? Careful what you wish for, right? Because how things want to show up and how things actually manifest, can often be at odds with each other of how we want it to go, and then being able to pivot, adapt in that moment. So you're definitely a walking example of that. Something you said in there that I thought was really a key distinction I want to double click on, so to speak, is you talked about, I went on this journey, and whether it was plant medicine, or whether it was silent meditation retreats, or whether event it was to find more meaning and deeper presence inside versus how do I just become better at this left brain side, or sales, or crushing, or quota, or making more money, because that's often what will instigate people to seek out help, right? Like, I just want to become better at this thing, where your intention of going inward was to go inward to become better, and then have the other piece almost be an effect of doing all of that. And I think that's really important because it's often misguided, right? When we're just trying to get better at something. I think probably people that come to your programs, like, they think they're coming for one thing, but they wind up realizing, like, oh, it's actually about this other thing. So I'd just be curious if maybe you could like share more of where that came from, because I think that'd be really valuable for men out there, like, don't know which way to look or where to go, or why am I even going on this personal growth journey?
Yeah. As I was starting to lead a lot of sales teams, when I joined a company called Outreach, we were around 25 million in revenue, and I helped to grow it up to 250 million in revenue. And when I moved out to New York, I got a call forward from one of my mentors who said something along the lines of like, Alex, you're kind of this tech sales guy by day and this spiritual dude by night. He's like, when are you going to combine those two things together to just be one version of you? And I was like, all right, beautiful call forward. Like, let's do this. And the first thing I started to do was, with my team, I actually started to lead each one of our team meetings off with a round of Wim Hof breathwork. And it was just a way of like, and it was different. It was weird. And if you know Wim Hof breathwork, it's like in through your mouth, out through your mouth, like pretty vulnerable positions to do with your teammates. And it really, like, initially there was pushback, but eventually it was like, okay, this is just something we do. And we started to talk a lot about what our unique vision is and why we're actually doing things. And we started to really focus a lot on the mental health part of sales, while also touching on the importance of sales. And it was just beautiful because as we did that, our team was not only performing at an incredible level, like I think out of 40 teams, we were either ranked number one or number two for like 3 or 4 straight years, but nobody wanted to leave. Like, our culture was phenomenal. Everybody wanted to be on our team. And it just kind of became this identity of our culture. Is like, wow, they not only crush their numbers, but like, man, they make you a better version of yourself. And really at the crux of it, it's like, yes, the sales tactic and the strategy is of course important, right? You need to learn how to do great discovery, set a powerful frame, right? Get people into a state of commitment. But if there's not the underlying foundation of mental, emotional, physical, even spiritual health, like I don't care how good your talk track sounds, you're going to fall flat if you're not coming from the right place. And especially when it comes to, a corporate sales job, especially, I mean, many jobs, I'm just going to apply it to sales. You got a quota looming and there's a lot of stress, there's a lot of anxiety. You are talking to people day in and day out. And so it's like, if you aren't in the right state, it's just you're going to be out of rapport with people. And
Mhm.
so a lot of the core of what we teach is kind of what we call the trailhead. The beginning to everything is self connection, right? Self connection, it's synonymous with self awareness, which is synonymous with self discovery. Essentially, at its core, is how do you feel your emotions that you push down, right? And when I feel anxiety, stress, fear, I push it down, and typically I distract myself with social media, with a substance, yeah, with work. Like I literally distract myself from my shit by working more. And the problem is those feelings don't go away. In fact, they actually start to fester. And when they fester, they not only move you up to your head where you start to loop, but it comes out inappropriately with your partner, with a prospect, with your leader, whatever it might be. And you go on this beautifully not so wonderful roller coaster of an emotional journey where there's highs and there's very deep lows. And, if we just really create space to essentially feel what we need to feel. And sometimes that comes in the form of meditation. And as Michael, you've actually taught me, sometimes that comes in the form of screaming into a towel because you actually have to feel your anger. And it's one of the reasons why my voice is the way it is today, because this weekend I screamed into a towel a couple of times. And it's like you just have to essentially, you have to move that energy, you have to move that emotion. And underneath that is, what I call your essence. Like your essence is that unique and authentic vibration of you. It's your light. It's like people just feel good around you. It's like, this person's relaxed in their own body. Therefore, I feel relaxed. You entrain people into your energy. And if you're trying to connect to other people and you first aren't connected to yourself, that ain't going to work out very well for you.
Yeah. Yeah, and what I hear a lot, and I know I've heard from in the past from you, is like you build really great culture, right? An environment for people to thrive in, right? We can get all the way down to epigenetics. It's not the genes you have, it's the environment those genes are in. So it's not the people or the salespeople you have, it's the environment with which they exist here that you're bringing in, even if it's simple breathing practices to help them connect more. And you also mentioned how there was resistance there, right? Which anytime we're going into uncharted territory or things that seem weird, yeah, there's going to be resistance. But on the other side of that, it's like people didn't want to leave, especially in an environment now where if you're at a corporate job for more than 2 years or plus, it's like, what's wrong with you, right? People are just moving on so much now, right? We're back in our parents' generation, like if you were to move job to job to job, they'd be like, "What's wrong with you?" But now it's like you stay at a place for a long period of time. It's almost like, "What's wrong with you?" So good on you, brother, for creating those cultures where people want to be there and feel good about being there. And truthfully, sales just gets a bad rap, right? Like everyone thinks of the used car salesman. I mean, I was in chiropractic for many years, and chiropractors definitely had an unfortunate stigma around them of wanting to sell their care. And I'm sure every industry has that at some level. And I know a big part of what you teach is that inner game, right? So I would love to really dive into that a little bit, because what I hear you saying is so much of like who you're being when you're given the message, right? And
Mm,
as we know from just communication, over half of a message that's being delivered is the physiology of the person delivering the message. So little of what is remembered or taken in of the actual words, or as you said, talk track, right? But everyone tries to perfect the script or whatever. And it's like people don't even remember that. They want to buy from someone they trust, and trust, it's such an instinctual thing. So maybe you can start to help people understand what the inner game is all about and why it's so crucial for
yeah.
success in this world.
Yeah, I'll start just, on the topic of like how you influence somebody. And there was this really powerful study that talked about the 738-55 rule. I'm not sure if you've heard of this, but it's what you're alluding to, where it says of your ability to influence somebody, 7% of your influence are the words that you say, right? The words that are coming out of your mouth, which where most sales training actually focuses is your script and the product information, right? And the beautiful part is like, cool, that's awesome. But there's 93% that my influence comes from something else, where of that 93%, 38% of that is actually your tonality. And there's this great book called Never Split the Difference by a guy named Chris Voss, who was a hostage negotiator. And he used to talk about the late night DJ voice. Essentially, are you speaking from a slower pace and a lower tonality? And where I think about that is actually being able to speak from your gut. And in Buddhism, they call it your dantian. It's like your yin. It's like where, if you're a woman, it's where your womb is, right? It's like where life is literally created. It's your direct connection to source. And so often when people feel like, oh my God, this person's just gave me a really tough objection. Oh, your price is too high. We're going to go with a competitor. What naturally happens is your energy rises and you start speaking either from your chest, your throat, or your nostrils. You're talking really, really fast like this. And you lose essentially trust from that. And so it's like, how do you actually learn, not just like intentionally, okay, I'm going to speak slower like a late night DJ, but like that's where your center of gravity is. Where the other 55% is, you guessed it, it's your body language, it's your energy, it's your physiology. One of my favorite places, easiest ways to coach rep is I say, hey, get a standing desk and take your hands off of the keyboard. So your heart and your chest literally opens up and your shoulders drop. Like just by doing that, you will start to speak from a different place. So it's like, cool, we have 93% of tonality and energy that's important. The question then becomes is like, cool, how? Like, how do we actually focus on that arena there? And from my perspective, there's, to really simplify it, there's two sides of the equation. Almost I call it like two different polarities, right? One of the sides is, man, who are you and why are you here? It's actually you gaining a sense of clarity on what are you serving and what's your mission and what's your vision. It was such a big part of our work this past weekend, even at the immersion of like, what are you actually doing with your life, and not just the what. Like, sure, like, so many people, when I ask them like, hey, what's your 3-year vision, like, I want to make 500K and I want to have this house, and it's like, cool, but like, what's the meaning you're creating in the world? Who are you actually impacting? How do you want to feel? How do you want the people around you to feel? What's your legacy that you're creating? And the key thing is, are you first enrolled into that vision? And it takes an intentional practice to re-enroll yourself all the time. Like, it's very easy to get in just the minutia of just like, all right, I got calls today. Okay, here we go. But it's like, are you doing something to change your state to tap you back into that vision and that why? Like, for example, one of the things that I do is I have a whole vision playlist on my Spotify. And sometimes when I'm kind of feeling in a rut, I'll put on my Bose headphones and I'll listen to, Hell's Bells as one of my vision songs. And I'll listen to that song. And I'm like, that's right. Like, this is what I'm doing. Like, and I'll feel the essence. I'll like feel the aliveness around, this is the change I'm bringing in the world. This is the movement that I'm about. That's such a key polarity. And if somebody doesn't know what their vision is or what their North Star is, that's okay. Like, what I would say to that person is like, your North Star should therefore be finding your North Star. It's like really uncovering, like, man, I'm hungry to figure this out. Like, I want to put myself in a space where I'm going to feel challenged, where I'm going to really be asked tough questions to say, like, man, what is this about for me? Versus just doing what, I've been conditioned to do. So that's one side of the polarity. I can go on the other side of the polarity too, but I'm curious if you have any comments or questions about that side.
Yeah, well, a bunch, but I'll keep it potent. Love this. The image I was getting as you were talking is that metaphor of like the bamboo tree, right? Where in its first, whatever, 5 years of growth, it's very, very little. And then in like 5 years to 20 years, and I'm probably getting those numbers wrong, it like shoots up. But everyone wants to grow so quickly and just be this huge bamboo or be this huge tree, or like, I'm getting into sales and I just want to crush it. And a lot of what I'm hearing you say is like so much energy, time, and intent needs to be spent on what is your vision, why are you doing it, and developing the practices and the skill sets to raise your vibration, raise your physiology up. And then it's like, again, that last 7, 10% is like, yeah, the script and the on the products and all of that. But everyone wants to focus on that. It's almost like you have to like hold back the energy to really develop yourself so that it's like, again, another metaphor of just like that slingshot coming back. And you got to really let that tension build before you let it go. And how often people just want to get off to the races and just, bump around and try to figure it out. And they wind up, I think, ultimately coming full circle and realizing they have to do this. So I see you positioning yourself to help people, even on the front end of their sales life, or however long they've been in it, to say this art is not only important; it's the most important thing. And I'm imagining the success you've seen with your clients and how they produce and the quotas they actually exceed is really relevant or prevalent.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's like, if people want to have all this, make this change in this world and to be impacting all these people, you first need to grow in your capacity to hold that stuff. And before, and I probably heard you say this multiple times, it's like if you want to be given more, God needs to trust you first to be able to give you more. That's actually what requires us to go to our edge, to go into our level of discomfort. It's kind of like when you sit in a cold plunge, 40-degree waters for 3 minutes. That's never fun. I've done it hundreds of times probably now at this point, and each time I'm like, damn it, I do not want to sit in this. But it's like every single time I go in there and I lose my breath, I'm like, oh my God. And I sit in it, just sitting in your discomfort, right? And being okay with it. You don't want to go so far out of it where it's actually like messes up your nervous system, but you want to stretch yourself enough to where that's where your capacity increases. Because when you get out of that 40-degree plunge, you're like, man, I'm stronger because of that. Man, I did that. Like, man, when I said I was going to do something, I did it and I sat within it, even when it was challenging. And what else can I do? Where else am I going to be finding this? And that's such a key component of it.
Cool. Before you get into the other side of that polarity, do you find, and I know it's a big part of your movement, is to help companies be essence led companies. And are you finding more and more that corporations, companies are starting to bring in this awareness in their trainings, or is it still like off the radar and then people are just seeking it out sort of external to their job? Or do you
Y-
feel like a cultural shift really starting to happen?
It's been a beautiful shift to see. We're still in the early stages of it, but I am seeing it becoming more and more prevalent. It's like if you look at 2018, 2019 timeframe, tech was booming then. Everybody had budget, everybody was hiring. I mean, it was fantastic. And a lot of times if I'd ask somebody, hey, tell me about yourself, one of the first things they would tell me is where they work and what their role is. Like a lot of their identity came from their W-2. And when I'd ask them, hey, what do you want to do in your career? A lot of them would talk about, man, I want to move up to VP of sales, chief revenue officer. Like they would talk about moving up the corporate ladder. And now in 2025, when I ask somebody, hey, tell me about yourself, very few are actually, the first thing they're telling me is where they work and what their W-2 is. And very few are saying that they actually want to stay in corporate. Many are actually saying they want to move up into entrepreneurship and own their own company, be an influencer, whatever it might be. And so there's this like thing that's becoming more awakened within people. Like it's, and you can call it like a deeper level of conscious awareness that's coming through. And as a sales leader or a CEO of a company, it's no longer just a nice to have of like, yeah, we need to like make sure they hit money and maybe we could help them become a better version of themselves. Like that would be cool, but like let's make sure they hit money. It's becoming a non-negotiable right now. It's like, hey, if we're not actually intentionally focusing on making this person feel what I call emotional wholeness, meaning like they know all the parts of themselves, they're becoming a better version of themselves, like they're going to leave. And I have seen a lot more focus on organizations. I mean, there's tons of organizations that reach out to me to go, we do multi-day engagements with corporations to essentially bridge the sales and the inner game. And again, it's not just like, hey, let's come into a company, let's all sit on meditation cushions and talk about, kumbaya sort of stuff. It's like, yeah, let's actually talk about what it means to drive a great sales process and to feel meaning as we do it, to genuinely want to help our prospects, because especially as AI is getting more and more, prevalent, people can sniff out bullshit a hell of a lot easier. That doesn't mean just sniff out bullshit of like this was, from AI. People can sniff out this person's just trying to close me. This person's got commission breath. And so it's becoming
Mission breath. Woo.
yeah, that thing is stanky. And trust me, I've had it myself many times before. It does not
That an
feel
industry
good.
term is
Yeah, I guess it's the industry term. But it's like, if you are approaching a prospect and if you are not trying to genuinely connect with them and genuinely try to help them, whether or not they realize it, they'll feel it and they'll turn the cheek. So it's just, it is becoming, again, not a nice to have. It's becoming a requirement. I'm seeing more and more organizations start to lean into it.
it just seems to me that there's just more fulfillment in having those genuine conversations, right? Yeah, maybe you're having less of them because I think there's just a mindset like I need to be on the phone, and the more kind of like the law of averages, the more no's I get, the more yeses I'll get, the more calls I make, the more I can weed that out. So I just need to make more calls. Well, it's like, what if one call accounted for 50% of your quota and you didn't need to make 1,000 calls, right? What if you actually just showed up in that way? And even if that person didn't buy, they actually referred you to someone that did buy a big thing or whatever. It's like, feels like becoming more efficient, right?
Hmm.
In the whole process, and actually finding enjoyment in the process, because as you shared earlier in your intro, it's like even when you were being successful, it was like you barely gave yourself 5 minutes to celebrate it, right? So it's like even when you're earning the commission or meeting the quota, what's behind that quota? Another quota,
Hmm.
right? So it feels like it loses a lot of its sense of fulfillment, where it's like, wow, I'm imagining in tech sales where it's like, well, what impact am I actually making in the world? So this company can do something a little faster, make a little more money. Like I have to find meaning in that. And I think the
Hmm.
meaning is in the connection, right? Like, because it is ultimately, at least at this point, still humans behind the phone, right? It is still bridging these worlds together and to help people feel good about what they're purchasing or what they're buying into. And rest your head on the pillow at night feeling like, yeah, I really served that person. And maybe it becomes more personal and you actually opened up them to something. And maybe you can share an example if it's relevant, but like where just a typical sales call turned into something that was much deeper and more profound and impactful for the person on the other end of the phone, regardless of a sale being made. And I imagine the sale was made anyway.
Let's give two examples here, right? Imagine you have two sales reps. They've both gone through the exact same training. They've both learned the same script. They have the same level of product info, all that sort of stuff. And then they have the same exact prospect that they're selling to. One person is being driven from fear, right? Fear of, oh my gosh, if I don't close this person, I'm not going to hit quota. My boss might fire me. And then if I get fired, I'm not going to be able to provide for my family. If I can't provide for my family, my wife's going to leave me. Then I'm going to be out in the streets, loop, loop, down, 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 right? You're being driven by fear. And there's a certain vibration that comes from that, right? It's a lower vibration that literally makes people feel a lack of safety and like you're trying to manipulate them. Now let's imagine, sales rep B, who they're not being driven by fear. Instead, now they're being driven by purpose. They're being driven by, man, I genuinely want to bring curiosity to this person. I want to see if we can actually even help them. And think about
God
the
forbid.
like and think about they use the same script, right? They had give the same demo, but maybe they actually let there be a little bit more space in between when the prospect says something and when they answer. As opposed to going directly into their pitch, they ask one additional question because they didn't quite understand it and they want to make sure they have a level of clarity there. Right. When it comes to actually pushing next steps, they're not just saying, hey, here's the next steps you need to do. Like they're truly making sure that they're selling with the person. They're solving the problem with them. It's like, where is your doer sourcing from? Right? Is it sourcing from fear? Or is it sourcing from impact and purpose? Right? That's completely like what we're trying to have done. And that's also really part of why the inner work is so important, where it's like, my work is very much not being good enough. Like that's just been so many people's work is like, I'm not good enough, but that's just like
Yeah.
a big part of like This weekend I presenced a lot of that of like, hey, I host retreats for 75 people. Who the fuck am I to be up on front of stage and actually doing this? I should be in your stage. I mean, that's constantly the voice in my head.
Right.
But if I don't have a practice where I go and meet these parts, and just so we know, this is the opposite polarity, by the way,
Okay.
of the
Thank you.
inner game. Like going and facing the stuff that's actually holding you back from embodying who you're meant to be. And for me, like my work personally is I'm not good enough. My work is depression. My work is like, if it's not hard, I'm not worthy of it. I think that was something that we talked about in our previous one on one session, you and I.
Yeah.
And it's like, if I'm not conscious of those things, I'm just being run by them, right? I'm just doing things. I'm just like, I don't know. Like, I'm just trying to talk and I don't know it's not working. What am I going to do? But if I now say, oh shit, like, let me look at this thing, man, how old this thing has been in me since I was 10 years old. Man, I learned this from my father. Wow, like, and when I get triggered by this, this is typically what happens. Oh, when I take this substance, wow, usually there's a laggard effect of 2 weeks where I'm in this certain funk. But where does it live in my body? And what color is it? Right? What's the sensation of it? Right? All this sort of stuff where it's actually bringing awareness to it. And the cool thing is, we're actually not trying to get rid of it, right? We're not trying to like, hey, I'm going to get rid of my not enoughness. I'm not trying to get rid of my depression. Like, sure, there's aspects of that, but it's like, I'm just actually trying to change my relationship to it. Like, I'll give an example. Like, the part of me that doesn't feel good and is really insecure, like, I've named him. His name is Herbert. And Herbert, sometimes he's like super quiet and chill, and sometimes he's like roaring in my ear. And like, I need to actually create space for me to go and to be with Herbert and be like, yo, what's up, dog? Like, what's up? Like, talk it out. Like, share with me, like, shed some tears with it. Like, and literally create this new relationship. So it's actually, I can actually use it to like weirdly deepen into my sense of self. Like I'm more confident in who I am and more confident of my bad parts, quote unquote.
Yeah.
It's just like, actually, this is just a part of me. And that's really, from my perspective, that's the work to be
Big
done there.
The quote that popped as you said that was like what we resist persists, right?
Mm.
And you have to develop, as you said, a relationship with it. Or I imagine, especially in the corporate environment, it's like so many masks that we have to
Oh,
wear,
man.
right? And we can't show who we really are. And, it's like almost like this very cutthroat environment where if you let on what's really going on, that people will use it against you in a way. And it's like, man, what kind of culture does that create? So I hear what you're doing, and that's like part of the process you bring people through it in your programs. It's like I can imagine people are like, whoa, unless they've had previous personal growth experience, probably have not addressed. Like I thought I was here for a sales seminar. Probably what you get a lot of the time, right? Where it was like, and they're like into it. I'm imagining most of the time, right? You probably meet some people with resistance because shit, and anytime you're going at that deep level, you're going to meet resistance within yourself and all of that, which is why what you're doing is so important, right? To bring out people's essence. And it's such a powerful place to exist because everything the culture has said, don't expose that part, especially as men, right? Like that's weakness. I love that you name that part of yourself and you're like, what's up, dog? Let's just have a conversation, like kind of air it out. And then we realize that big scary monster is not that scary. Right? And in fact, being able to tap into that gives you even more leverage within yourself and a greater sense of self-awareness and more empowerment because it's kind of like when I think of stories of like when kids are being picked on by bullies will point out the thing and kids will get like really insecure, but then when you see kids like just start to own that thing, like like they lead with it almost like, yeah, you're going to talk about that I'm fat, you're going to say, and it's like it just totally disarms the situation, right? Where it's like you get to really name that part in yourself. It's like just doesn't have that grip on you anymore, right? And then, it's almost like people can relax because you're vulnerable. It's
Mhm.
almost like we have to like really reformulate everything we've been taught about how we're supposed to present ourselves.
Have you ever seen the movie 8 Mile with Eminem?
Yeah, a long time ago, but for sure.
So the final rap battle where Eminem is like facing the guy, he calls out everything about himself. He's like, "Yeah, I live with my mom. Yeah, my girlfriend cheated on me." Like all this sort of stuff. So
Right.
then the person who's battling him has nothing to say. And that's what, it's even a great sales tactic of like preempting the objection. Yeah, I'm assuming you're going to say the price is too high. Hey, I'm assuming you're going to say our competitor is doing this. Like if you can get ahead of it, you
Right.
own it, right?
Yeah.
That's it. And I remember you told me this before one of my most recent retreats of just like the most powerful leaders are the ones who share vulnerably about what's really going on with them. Like there's this old model where we think, oh, I'm the leader. I should have all the answers. I should look great. I need to put on this image. And it's like, and maybe that works to a level, right? You don't want to break trust, of course. But what people crave now more than ever, especially millennials and below, or at least just that's from my perspective, they want someone who's like, man, this person's in their work too. Man, this person's effed up just like me. It builds a level of trust. And it's like the more ownership we can build in that, it actually shows a level of confidence versus a weakness.
Yeah. I feel like we went from an attention economy to a trust economy in the last couple years, right? Now everyone's vying for your attention and frankly no one has it anymore. So not really it's a moot point. But now it's like, do I trust this person? Right? Do I feel like I can actually really trust what they're saying and who they are? And it's no matter what they go through. It's the classic thing where it's like when you see it a lot of times in the culture when someone famous, for example, gets caught in an infidelity or some kind of scam or whatever it may be, and then they deny it, right? And yeah, bullshit. Now I don't trust them at all. Where when they come out and take full ownership, radical ownership, like, yep, and I'm gonna do better next time. Like I fucking trust that guy now. Like he's not trying to hide it because everyone knows, right? The court of public opinion is never wrong in a lot of, I mean, I don't say never wrong. I don't like saying never, but there's definitely a riot mentality out there. But people can read energy. People know what's going on. It's like you have to take ownership and clean it up. And I just love the depth at which you, again, like I said earlier, it's like you as a person have taken it so far to help move the culture just a little bit, which is really why I wanted to have this conversation because you really, in a lot of ways, represent the epitome of what it means to take this all the way. Even moving from your W-2 to creating a company for it. And like you said, not everyone wants to climb that corporate ladder anymore. People get to the point where they realize, I want to do this for myself because I trust myself more than the people that I've been working for. So it's such a big leap. I feel like our group, Ignite, has become almost like a safe house for people that want to make that transition from a W-2 into what their mission really is in life. So you're an example of that as well. So just as we start to get toward the end here, bring a little more granular, a little more tactical. I think people have listened this far. They're like, okay, so quote unquote, how do I do that? Like, what are some like strategies for shifting that focus from competition to collaboration into personal development and cultivating that? And you've hit on it a bit, but if we can just bring in some focus that cultivating that
Yeah.
growth mindset around sales and how you teach that.
I call it the sacred formula is this, and there's three components to the sacred formula. Number one, it's who you surround yourself with, straight up, right? Are you surrounding yourself with a group of people who you feel a sense of belonging around? And when it's actually funny because belonging activates your prefrontal cortex because it makes you feel safe, which creates more oxytocin. So it actually taps you more into flow state. Of course, community, if you're struggling, you have each other's back, but community, what's most important, like there's a freaking standard. There's a level of accountability with things. So it's like, who are you surrounding yourself with? And sometimes that's not just your college buddies or your teammates. It needs to be people that you actually have a safe container where you can take off the mask and share some deeper stuff. So that's the first part of the formula. The second part of the formula is commit to your craft straight up, like the tactics and the strategy, the left brain. That includes really commit to owning what your process is, owning the questions you ask, owning your language, owning how do you get a prospect into a state of commitment. It's not necessarily coming from, I'm trying to manipulate you, but coming from like, hey, I truly want what's best for you. And I'm really good at my job to get you into that state. Right. So it's like commit to your craft. And that can come in the form of sales or leadership or being an engineer, whatever it is, like commit to that left brain.
It's like own your
Um,
greatness.
Yeah, own your greatness, truly. And especially right now as AI and crypto and developing a brand is changing so much stuff, like it becomes really a requirement of like commit to your mastery of your field. And the third pillar is, a big one of that we talked about is like commit to the self. And really, I view it's like number one, learn how to connect with yourself. And there's so many modalities, whether it be meditation or breath work or, right after this call, I'm going and walking in the forest without my phone because I need to just like be in that state or journaling or, whatever it might be. But like have a practice where you can say, all right, let me feel my body, let me feel my emotions and let me just be with them. It's less of like, what do I do with them? Well, how do I get rid of them? How do I, it's just bring awareness to it. Man, how is my body feeling right now? And what is my actual state? And where am I emotionally? Like the awareness of it, that's it. Like, and then there's going to be a natural intuition essentially of what you should do with that. And as part of that, also really own what makes you unique and authentic, right? Authenticity, I view as the strongest vibration or wavelength that can come off of somebody. We've all been at a party, a bar, a restaurant where we see somebody walk in who's fully in their essence and authentic. And you're like, damn, I don't know who that is, but like they're attractive. Like there's a magnetic pull that they has because they're owning, they're like, yeah, I'm weird. Like, fuck yeah. Like they own it. Like, do that. And, once you're connected with yourself and then you're owning what makes you unique, then from there, it's like really bring a level of curiosity and clarity to like, what is the vision and the purpose and the mission that I'm serving that's coming uniquely from you. We've all had a different background, had different challenges and different, things that have happened. What was I put on earth to do? As grandiose as that question is, can you bring a practice around beginning to answer that question? Like that's such a key thing. And like, if you do those three things, like if you commit to your craft, if you commit to yourself, meaning you feel an aliveness around your vision and also face the stuff that's holding you back, and then really you surround yourself with other people doing that same damn thing who are bringing a deep level of commitment to it. What else can you do? That's it. Like what's not possible when you have those three key ingredients to the cauldron there. That's a nice bowl of stew there, I'd say.
Love that, man. This is really shifting as you're sharing, and one of the reasons I love doing podcasts is I'm learning, right? And whether I like it or not, I'm in sales, right? I'm selling care, so to speak, and I've learned a lot of what I've been sharing, and I've been impacted by it, and just allowing myself. It's funny. I always used to laugh because when I would enroll someone in my program, typically they're sales guys, right, or they're high level entrepreneurs or uh, the corporate world, and I'm like, I'm not gonna try to sell you. I'm not gonna try to say the thing that you probably say to your prospects. Like, that's just ridiculous for me to do. And I almost feel like when you come from that place that you're talking about, the thing almost sells itself. People know when I'm on a sales call, like, there's some sale coming, there's gonna be an invitation to a program, right? You've already probably decided what the answer is gonna be, and you're like, "I just wanna see how this person comes across with it. Are they honest? Are they vulnerable? Are they authentic? Do they believe in what they do? Or are they just tell me?" Like you said, people up that bullshit me I'm from New York originally, man, like, that bullshit meter was developed from a very young age where you could just pick up on, like, this person just wants something from me versus like, wow, they're actually genuinely here to pour into me, and I wanna give them the sale. I want to give it to them because they deserve it, because they've bodied it enough. So I love hearing that.
Yeah.
And, just to kind of round out this completely, because I know the work you do is really powerful in your groups, is like, what's the impact you've seen? You've been doing it long enough now. You've seen people
Mhm.
come through your programs, you've transformed them. And now I'm sure you have gotten tons of feedback of like, holy shit, I can't believe I've never done that before, or like, now I'm seeing this, and this. I'm just curious if we can hear some of that, some of those results.
Yeah, well, the first I'll just comment on what you said. I had a great so our chief sales trainer, his name is Chris in our Alluviance community, and one thing that he talked about is that when you can understand and communicate the prospect's problems back to them better than they can, that's the sale. That's it.
Mhm.
It's not your product, it's not your pitch, it's not anything. It's like when you can understand their problems better than they can, then they're gonna trust you with it. Yeah, I mean, we've been throwing, we threw 8 retreats this year. We've thrown a total of about 16 or 17, probably had close to 500 or so people attend. And, we've had account executives, sales leaders, founders come. And, I could talk about the guy named Brody or the guy named Cameron, a woman named Katie, who, they went from, making 100 to 150K a year to now they're making 400 to 500. Some are making even close to 7 figures this year from like really buying into stuff. And that stuff is great. Of course, like like, who doesn't want those types of results? And that's beautiful. But what I, really love to see in people is, man, they're so much more embodied within themselves. They know themselves more. They know these patterns that they've been living out unconsciously that they inherited from their parents or inherited from previous lifetimes. Like they're aware of these parts of them. And some of them, sure, they've made it better and they've been able to transcend those things. But mostly they're like, I know myself. I know who I am and I know what I want to be doing. There's this one gentleman who, when he joined, he had just become an account executive, a closer in his career. And now he's the top enterprise account executive, which essentially is the top tier rep that you can do. But his main vision for himself, he's like, man, I'm eventually going to be throwing, he just kind of planned his first retreat that he's going to throw of bridging essentially his unique essence around sales. And he's a lot around like eating meat. Like he's really passionate about meat and the food that you put into your body and biohacking. And he's throwing his first retreat. And he's like, I feel a level of aliveness within that I've never felt before because he's like gaining confidence in his own path. And a lot of the work that I've especially learned from Ignite that I've brought into our containers, a lot around relationships too, of just like, how do you really have presence for your partner? How do you create sacred space to be with them? How do you essentially, yeah, communicate the shit and honor it? And also like probably the biggest thing that I've learned a lot from Ignite and that I've really tried to, bridge down to the men, especially in our container, is to honor the woman, honor the oracle nature in her, honor the man, she is divine. And it's about like you creating powerful space to allow that to unfold and come out. And it's no surprise actually through Ignite, just to give a little plug to you, like I went through a couple of breakups while I was in the crew. And then I also was able to find my wife and essentially become the person that I was ready to be, to not only attract her, but actually really commit to her at a deeper level. And I don't think that would have been possible without me being in the brotherhood and doing the work on myself to support myself of preparing my vessel to bring in this type of relationship.
Whew, beautiful. That's a good way to wrap it up. It's holistic, man. I've said it many times in our group on this podcast. The degree to which you feel inspired to create in the world is directly reflective of the level of relationship you have with your partner.
Mm,
You're feeling good about that, everything's great. You're feeling shitty about that, doesn't matter how good it looks on the outside, doesn't feel good on the inside. So that is the inner game for me and the work that's most important from that hearth creates all the success out. So love hearing that. Thank you so much for your time today and getting to hear more about in depth, like the real depth that you bring into what you do. We've talked about it a number of times over the years, but you're definitely someone that has mastered their craft, not just in sales, but how to lead others in that journey. And it's beautiful to witness your evolution in that and your embodiment. You just feel it. It just feels like true through and through. So
mm.
thank you for that
Appreciate
gift.
that, brother. Yeah, and
Yeah.
I can't remember if this was a quote you said or I've heard it from somewhere else, but to be a master is to never view yourself as one. So although I feel like I'm good at what I do, I'm just at the beginning of the beginning of what I'm trying to do here.
We're all on the path of mastery, brother. That's for sure. If I said that, I'm like, damn, I said that. That's awesome. I know it'll be in the show notes as well for everyone, but can you share with our audience where they can find your work if you're in the sales world and want to tap in that inner game, you want to become a master of your craft? Alex, absolutely the one to help guide you in that process. Where can people find you?
Yeah, appreciate that. I'm big on LinkedIn. I post there almost every single day. You can check out our website, alluviance.co. We've got our newsletter as well. It goes out on a weekly basis. And there's many ways. We got an online course, we got retreats, we got a year-long community. So many ways that, yeah, we can support people on their journey.
Love that. I love Alex's newsletter. I read it every week. Quotes to fuel your Alluviance. It's like a metronome for me. I see it come through. I make sure to read it. Keeps me plugged in and tapped into just how to be better human. So I highly recommend getting in touch with him and following his work. Thank you, brother, for being here.
Oh, thank you, brother.